Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Friday Night Mike. Back on the front porch. Last week I got rained out. Just kind of settling in. Man, busy day. I could still be writing stories. I mean, who would know that typically Friday, remember Fridays weren't always the newsiest days. He used to call it a Friday afternoon dump because things were so quiet, but now it seems like the SEC likes to put things out every Friday afternoon. They put out some new guidelines this afternoon. I'll get to that. I'll talk about that. There's been some injuries at Georgia. There's been a player who left. There's been a player who's come back. The Big Ten, they can't decide what they want to do. 8 Nebraska players suing the Big Ten. Big Ten now with some plans to start football in January or talking about some plans. Now they're saying, well, maybe as early as Thanksgiving weekend. It's crazy, right? But the good news is it's crazy in a way that's leaning towards more football, not less football. You know, it seemed like it was just a few weeks ago. There were all those rumors that weekend, and is there going to be football? Is there not going to be football? And we all kind of freaked out on that Monday because all the Big Ten and the Pac-12 people were leaking stuff to national writers. And we all wondered, we were all holding our breath and said, is there going to be a domino effect here? Is the Big Ten, the Pac-10 going to say they're done? And then what? ACC says they're done. SEC says they're done. We were all worried about that. It didn't happen. The SEC held firm. They got in that stare down and they said, you know what? We've got a plan. It seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it? And yet it wasn't. It was really just a few weeks ago. And here we are at the end of August, and there's actually games scheduled this weekend, if you can believe it. And that's exciting, and that's good for the student athletes that want to pursue their goals. So far, so good. Everybody knock on wood. There haven't been, to my knowledge, there haven't been any tragic COVID-19 related incidents with college football to this point. We know there's been some illnesses, but to this point, what I'm starting to see is just your average, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill because I don't take anything for granted, but we're starting to see the injuries. So before I really dive into the details, I want to get into the share portion. I've got to share this on different pages on Facebook. Viewership is important. Obviously, we want to maintain this show, so I'm going to share this on my personal Facebook page. If you could share this, that'd be great. The more people that watch it, the better. The more informed everybody is, the more everybody knows what's going on with SEC and Georgia football, because it's coming. It's not that far away. It's less than a month away. I mean, here we are. It's August 28th, and kickoff is September 26th. Can you believe it? It's 4 weeks away. 4 weeks away. This weekend at Georgia, and I imagine of a lot of other campuses, this is going to be a really big scrimmage weekend, and I'm really excited about it for Georgia. Again, I'll get to that in a second. Like I said, I got to do all my shares here at the start of the program. It's just me doing the show. There's no producer on the other side. There's no social media guy. So I'm kind of a one-man band here, beating the drum and playing the harmonica, trying to do social media sharing and get it out there on all the Georgia channels. Like I said, if you guys can help me out with that, I'd really appreciate that. Talking college football and all the happenings. There's a headline for you. Maybe not the most creative headline in the world, but it's pretty accurate. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing. We're talking about Georgia football and all the happenings. I mean, and there's a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'll back that up. So let me back this up to the Big Ten. So this is out of an ESPN report that they're talking about Thanksgiving weekend start for football being one of several options. I don't know what option they're going to go with. They're still looking primarily at an early January start with like an 8 or a 9 game schedule. And then they would get done before the NFL draft. Now, when Greg Sankey talked about this, he talked about it like in the middle of July. He was doing a talk show with somebody in New York that he knew. I don't know who. But he said the problem with that, he used Tua, right? Tua Tagovailoa. He used that injury. Remember how Tua got injured and he was able to have surgery and he was still able to be a first-round draft pick? Well, Sankey used that as an example and said, hey, these guys that would be first or second-round picks or third-round picks, they're not going to play, because if they get injured, they're not going to have time to get healed or have that surgery before the draft, the end of April. So that's the problem with the season that starts in January and goes January, February, March. And also the Big Ten says they want to make sure they don't kind of back themselves into a corner, where if you do play that abbreviated spring season, do you damage the chances at a normal fall season? I hate to use that word normal, because nothing seems normal anymore. I say that as, Mr. Quarantine himself here. I've tried to remember, I've talked about this at length, about taking measured risks, and fortunately I haven't had any job assignments that have forced me to travel, and so I mostly stay home. Today I had a really bad toothache this morning. Like it was horrible. I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't know how many of you have had that, like throbbing. And I called my dentist. I said, they're closed on Friday. I said, I don't know, is this an emergency? He said, yeah, this is an emergency, but go get pain medicine. We'll see you Monday. We got to get, take some amoxicillin and get the infection out of your tooth, and take the ibuprofen and all. So I was out, and I think I was out of it mentally for a while, just on this pain stuff. But I left the house today, right? But for the most part, I've been staying in. So it hasn't been normal for me either. I know it's not normal for you. I've been talking to my daughter, it's just crazy time. So the Big Ten now, they've put themselves in this crazy time. The Big Ten did this to themselves. They played poker. They thought everybody would follow their lead when they folded their cards back on August 11th. They were banking on everybody folding their cards. And when it didn't happen, suddenly their coaches went ballistic, right? Their coaches started complaining. Nebraska talked about leaving the league. James Franklin out there, Ryan Day. All these Big Ten coaches were freaking out once they realized that, hey, guys, we're the only ones right now that are out. Well, the Pac-12's out too, but who cares about the Pac? The Pac-12 lost their relevance when they didn't keep up with the TV deals. And you say, well, what does TV got to do with this? Well, the TV deals get you TV money. And TV money gets you prime facilities and larger recruiting budgets. So when the Pac-12 didn't keep up and get a competitive television deal, they lost out on so much. I mean, how much are we talking about? Okay, the SEC, for example, every school gets like $44 million. Like that much money, okay? Every school gets that. Now, don't hold me, and I should Google this. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm not sure the Pac-12 as a whole had a deal worth $44 million. Let me see. I really shouldn't throw numbers out there. I always say, well, okay. Well, I was wrong about that. I don't know how much they get every year. So this was a 12-year deal worth $3 billion. That's 12 years. So what is that? 300 million divided by 12. Okay, so they're getting mid-20 millions per school then. Just rough math, okay? So they're getting slightly more than half, but not much money. That's when the Pac-12 fell behind. So take the Pac-12 out of it. Let's get back to the point. The Big Ten made a big mistake by backing out their own schools. The presidents were not on the same page with the ADs, were not on the same page with the coaches. It ended up being a complete embarrassment. And we've had this fiasco of 3 weeks. We've had different players speaking out. We saw Justin Fields on Good Morning America begging to play the game. We saw Trevor Lawrence of the ACC head up a player petition. All sorts of crazy. And the SEC, meanwhile, the SEC has just gone left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Just like Greg Sankey said they would all along. You've got to appreciate this. You've got to appreciate the amount of communication, the level of planning, the level of expertise. Listen, nobody does it like the SEC, all right? I know there's a lot of SEC envy. People who aren't in the SEC bash the SEC. I know this. I covered the Big Ten for 4 years, between 2012 and 2016. There is a ton of SEC envy. But that's not the SEC's fault that they do it right. They put a priority on it. They put smart people on the case, and they communicate. And the fans and the players make it very clear that it's worth their while. And it matters. And when something matters to you, you're going to invest more into it and you're going to be less likely to give up on it. And you saw the Pac-12 give up, and you saw the Big Ten give up, but you have not seen the SEC give up. And the reason that the SEC hasn't given up is because they had the planning. Listen, what do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. The SEC said, yeah, September 26th, way off. But we're worried about this increment. And then we're worried about this increment. And then we're worried about this increment. The Big Ten came out one week, gave you the schedule. The next week, canceled the whole darn season. Now, that's just terrible planning. And now here we are, 2 weeks later, and the Big Ten saying, well, maybe we'll play on Thanksgiving weekend. Now, wait a minute. Just at some point, cut your losses. Have you ever been in a situation, you've been in an argument, and you realize at some point that you're wrong? As somebody who likes to argue and has debated for many years on many things, sometimes you just got to go, you know what? I'm wrong, right? That's happened to me with players. I've said, when you forecast a player's success or the team's going to do this, and at some point you just got to cut your losses and say, man, I was wrong about that. I misjudged. Or the Big Ten just needs to say, we were wrong. We made a mistake, because they look terrible throwing bad money after good money in this incredible scramble mode. It's a complete embarrassment. Listen, I went to a Big Ten school. I got a journalism degree from Michigan State. I was really proud of that. I think Big Ten schools have really good academics. I think a lot of schools have good academics. But for me, where I grew up, going to Michigan State was a big deal. And I was proud that I did it. I'm still proud I got a Big Ten degree. But boy, do they look like a bunch of clowns right now. I don't know that Big Ten degree is worth quite as much today as it was before Kevin Warren became the commissioner. And I don't know how much is on him, and I don't know how much is on the presidents for not communicating clearly with him. But Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, looks like the biggest hypocrite in football right now, with his son playing football at Mississippi State and kids in the Big Ten not allowed to play. That's just how it looks. I don't think it was planned that way, but you step back and you say, Kevin, I'm sure there's an explanation for this, but that don't look good, man. You're not letting the Big Ten players decide for themselves if they're going to play football, but your own son is at Mississippi State. That's not good. So, let's shift gears. SEC protocol came out. Big news. The marching bands will not be able to march on the field. Now, that is big news, because that's part of the environment. We knew that college football would look different. And we all said, we don't care, we still want it. And we do still want it. But let's face it, it's gonna be a little watered down as far as the stadium environment. You knew that when you saw that between 20 and 25% was going to be the stadium attendance models. Pretty much what you see at a spring game in most places. Now, some crazy places like Alabama and Georgia and LSU, Ohio State, Nebraska, you might see 50 or 60,000 there at a spring game. But most places, you usually see 20 to 30,000, right? And that's what it's going to look like, a spring game at most places, 20 to 25,000. The band will still be there, but not the visiting band. So the bands can't travel on the road. So you're not going to hear the Gator Bait song from the Florida people. Well, now, wait a minute. That's Jacksonville. We'll have to wait and see. That's a neutral site. Technically, that's Georgia's home game. I'll be interested to see if they allow the Florida band to travel. I'll bet they will. Most stadiums, though, you're not going to see the visiting band. You're not going to see the visiting cheerleaders. And it's part of the attraction, but I also feel bad for the band members and the cheerleaders, because that's kind of why they went to school, right? That's fun for them. They invest a lot of time and a lot of practice, and that's part of their experience that they're going to be losing out on. COVID-19, folks, doesn't discriminate, okay? Everybody's losing out on something, okay? I want to be clear on that. But we're actually hearing and seeing now what some of the changes are going to be. Only 500 visitor tickets, minimum 500. Those tickets are not going to go to fans. Those are going to go to parents of players, friends, coaches' families, probably administrative VIPs. I know that in the SEC, there's no visitor tickets allowed. I don't know if that really affects home crowd or not. I know it bothers some people that like to see different stadiums. Again, COVID-19 doesn't, everybody giving up a little bit of something. So that was something new that came down in that SEC protocol. News for Georgia last week. Georgia locking down the future. So Kirby Smart, like Nick Saban, when you have success, your best coaches go somewhere else. Kirby doing what he can to lock down some coaches for the future. Dan Lanning now with a guaranteed contract through 2023. Matt Luke with a guaranteed contract through 2023. And Scott Cochran with a guaranteed contract through 2022. To my knowledge, those are the only. Now here's the thing. I read the fine print. I don't think if Lanning gets a head coaching job, I don't think he's responsible for a buyout. I think there's an out for him. And if Luke gets a coordinator or a head job or an NFL job, these are built in, so these are very friendly contracts. Oh my gosh. That's a bad omen there, isn't it? My bulldog just broke. This is live. I can't do anything about this. I can't believe this happened. I didn't hit the bulldog. You saw that, right? I didn't knock him over. My bulldog is not a bulldog anymore. I don't know what he is. This is not good. I'm like hurt. This Mason the bulldog. This thing had become like a part of the show, right? I move him around. He's always in the background. Wow, Mason the bulldog. I'm speechless, guys. I don't know what to say. My bulldog's dead. Well, he was never really alive, but I mean that just happened. I mean, that really happened. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not going to get up and walk off the set. I'm going to be a pro here. I'm going to finish the show. Mason, the bulldog. I'll give him his final time here. What's left of him? He's kind of disfigured now. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I was mid-flow. We were talking. And the bulldog hears about Matt Luke getting a guaranteed deal and Dan Lanning getting a guaranteed deal and me saying that maybe they have outs, and it was like Mason took a dive. It was like he got ticked off. He said, well, the heck with this then. And he dove headfirst off the ledge onto the cement and he broke, man. Next dog up. There it is. Next dog up. Mason was a great dog. It was a great part of the show. This is unscripted. I don't know what to say. Like I said, I'm disappointed. I shouldn't get attached to something like this, but I kind of did. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of gotten a little attached. So, all right, let me collect myself here. No more Mason the bulldog. But I'll tell you what. There's Jalen Carter the bulldog. Let's talk about Jalen Carter the bulldog. If you have not seen the viral video on Dog Nation yet, you have absolutely, positively got to watch Jalen Carter mano a mano, head-to-head with preseason center Trey Hill. Trey Hill goes 6'4", 330. Jalen Carter, 305, true freshman. Trey Hill, junior. Jalen Carter, true freshman. Watch that video, folks. You've got to watch that video. If I was doing a Zoom, I would share my screen and I would show you this video. But watching Jalen Carter, this absolute man-child, push back this 330-pound All-SEC center, that's not supposed to happen. Now, Dan Lanning knew that it was going to happen. If you read our story last week, we wrote about what Dan Lanning said, and his comment was that Jalen Carter was going to make the man across from him a lot better. And you think about, well, now what does that mean? Well, that means and sure enough, this guy's unbelievable. This Georgia, and I had heard, everybody talked about he's going to be good. He's going to, you go, yeah, sure, he'll be good. He'll play 8 or 10 snaps. No, this guy looks like an impact player. Wait till he gets some technique. This kid from Apopka, Florida. What a monster. Jalen Carter, soon to be SEC household name. This Georgia defensive line is the real deal. This Georgia defensive line is on par with the championship lines that you saw at Alabama and Clemson. I mean, Malik Herring and Trayvon Walker. Okay, there's two NFL guys that are split in that defensive end position. Pick your poison. Good luck. Then you got Jordan Davis and sixth-year senior Julian Rochester. Maybe he's fifth-year senior. Julian was a starter in 2018. Set out last year coming off a knee. He's back now. Then you got Jordan Davis. I mean, you just don't make people 6'8", 345. But there he is with good footwork and athleticism. Former three-star developed. And Devontae Wyatt now, who was the most productive interior defensive lineman on the Georgia team, currently ranked the number 8 defensive tackle in the country, draft eligible, according to Todd McShay, and Jalen Carter. What a monstrous front. What a incredible, athletic, big, strong Georgia front line. And we're not even talking about the outside linebackers with Azeez Ojulari, Jermaine Johnson, Adam Anderson, and Nolan Smith, the number 1 recruit in the country from 2019. Those are your DNs. Those are your outside linebackers. I mean, all future NFL guys. Monty Rice recently rated the highest guy by the NFL scouting service on the Georgia team among the seniors. Now, I'm going to make a very important distinction that Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell were not rated, those two junior corners. I think both of those guys have a chance to go in the first 2 rounds. And there's DJ Daniel, who's also considered a pick in the first 3 rounds. Those are 3 corners. That's how good Georgia's defense is. So that makes me wonder a little bit about this scrimmage tomorrow. Tomorrow's the first scrimmage of the offseason, for the first full-fledged scrimmage. So if you're Kirby Smart, do you turn your defense loose on the offense? Now, first of all, they're not going to hit the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks do not go down at Georgia. You got to protect your quarterback. Jamie Newman's not going to get hit. JT Daniels, Dwan Mathis, Carson Beck, they're not going live, okay? The days of quarterbacks going live are done. Maybe in the spring, in extreme circumstance, but not going to happen in a fall drill with the season less than a month away. Do you turn your defense loose in scrimmage 1, or do you make your defense play vanilla and let the offense have a little bit of success and challenge your defense to make plays in zone, right, instead of press man? Georgia and press man, they're really good. You guys know this, right? And you go press man and you pressure, there's not many offenses that are going to move the ball. You want to let your defense have some success because they deserve it. But by the same token, how much are you really getting out of it if your offense has, that one guy that breaks down at every play in the offensive line and the quarterback, and you're blowing the whistle over and over and over? So I think that you've got to let your offense have a little bit of success. I think you've got to kind of water it down a little bit. I'll give you an analogy here, a story, an anecdote. When I covered Tennessee, people always go, oh, we hate these stories when you cover Tennessee. You're in Georgia now. I know, but bear with me. So Philip Fulmer is an offensive-minded coach. He was an offensive line coach. John Chavis was the D coordinator. So back then, scrimmages would be open, and I would really want to know, hey, what's going on, with these scrimmages? So I would call Coach Chavis. Back then, you call these guys after practice. Everybody could talk, and they did. And I'd call Chief. We call everybody, Chief, man, what happened to that scrimmage, man? I saw Fulmer's guys. They were running all over you. Well, they really weren't running them all over him, but I knew if I poked the bear that Chief would tell me more. He'd say, Mike, God dang it, I thought you were smarter than that. I said, Coach, what are you talking about? He goes, we were standing around like wooden Indians. We couldn't blitz. We couldn't press. Phillip had to set up to fail every doggone play because he wanted them offensive guys to feel good about themselves. Oh, is that what happened? Well, yes, that is what happened. And that is what happens. It happens over and over and over and over. It happens all across the country, and defensive players get ticked off because they say, hey, man, I'm out here to make a play. Coach, you're taking that away from me. Chill out. We got to do what's best for the team, right? It's like back when I would pitch batting practice to my teams. I didn't want my ace pitcher throwing batting practice because they couldn't hit her. So I would throw underhand till the girls got big enough to hit the ball hard at me, and then I'd use them softballs, right? The really squeezy ones, right? But when you're a coach, you got to let your team have success. So how does Kirby do it? Now, I do think there's going to be some situations early where he lets the defense go, and he lets that offense see just how far they have to go yet, and he lets that defense know that, yes, all that hard work, we are the number 1 defense, but at some point, he's got to call off the dogs, and he's got to allow Monken's system a chance to work. Because you're playing against the best team in the country. That's not a realistic look. Arkansas is not going to be that. So give these guys an opportunity. And Todd Monken talked about it. He said, we got to have some confidence. You got to build some confidence. And to me, that's going to be one of the secrets. That's going to be one of the keys to fall drills, is how do you build your offensive confidence when you're going up against those great defenders every day. I really believe that. Your offense has to have some confidence they can get it done. Now, they've got some playmakers. And when I talk about the three things that I want to see, and I'll write it tomorrow, but I'm going to talk it tonight, the number one thing that I would want to see if I'm Georgia is I want to see how the quarterbacks manage the team. I want to see how Jamie Newman and JT Daniels and Carson Beck and Dwan Mathis, let's just say the quarterbacks, I want to throw all four of them out there because right now they're all still in the mix. They'll play their way out of it. There's a process. The process will take care of itself. But right now, in all fairness, Kirby and Monken are going to give all four of those guys a shot. I want to see who manages the team in and out of the huddle. You might say that is the most boring thing ever, Mike. Well, it might be, but it doesn't matter what your play is if you can't get the play call off in time. If you can't get the play called clearly and you can't get the play off in time, then you ain't playing quarterback. And it's really not that easy. I promise you, especially if you're going to do some fastball or some high-tempo stuff. Can you run tempo? Can you get him out of the huddle? Can you get the play? Can you get to the line in time to make the pre-snap read and change the play? Jake Fromm was great at this. You didn't see many Georgia delay of games. We just all took it for granted that it just didn't happen. Well, that was because Jake was so good at it. And the one time it did happen, DeAndre Swift got all upset and didn't realize that Jake didn't have time to audible because the play clock had gone down. And that was it the Kentucky game or was it the A&M game? I can't remember. But now you've got a new cast of characters. You've got a brand new offense. You've got brand new terminology. And how do you get your team up to the line and get the play? So I want to see that. I want to see who makes the right reads. Because Kirby's going to, those defenders like we were talking about, there's going to be a part of practice where they're moving around, right? Who's going to make the read? Who's going to know when to check down, when to audible, when to switch from run to pass? Who knows how to make the read that you're taught to read? All right, when we say, yeah, the quarterback can call the plays, he can call the plays, but the plays are already prescribed for the situation. It's when you see this, you do that. When you see this, you do this. When you do this, you see that. You know, there's an answer that's already set up in advance. It's not like, geez, I wonder what Jamie Newman will call if they change the D. No. We already know what he's checking into. He already knows what he's supposed to check into. So which quarterback can make those reads, get the playoff on time, and manage the huddle? That's just number one most important thing. It's 11 on 11 now. It's not 7 on 7. It's not situational work where coach comes out and pulls out the flip card and talks to you between every. No. Live scrimmage action. Who's managing the team? Where are you really at? Now that the bullets are flying, as close to flying as they can be without playing a game, who's going to manage it? So that's the number one thing that I want to see about Georgia if I'm at that scrimmage. The number two thing I want to see, I want to check out these receivers. I want to know what I got. All right. I know that George Pickens can catch anything and everything within 6 inches of his fingertips and upside down if he had to. I mean, he's the most amazing pass catcher that I've covered in person. There's other great receivers that you all can name. A.J. Green is a guy that Georgia fans will talk about. Randy Moss is a guy that NFL people will like to talk about. George Pickens is an incredible talent. He's got to get his discipline down. He's got to learn to control his emotions, okay? We know all that. That's not what we're worried about tomorrow. Tomorrow what we want to see is how does Pickens handle double coverage and who's the other guy? How does Jermaine Burton, the young freshman, step up and make plays against that defense? Or does he? Can he beat press coverage? Can he get separation against the likes of DJ Daniel, Tyson Campbell, or Eric Stokes? Or is he blanketed? What happens when Pickens has Richard LeCounte over the top with DJ Daniel in combo coverage, right? Matt Landers, right? The guy that looks like $1 million. I know the Georgia fans beat him up. This guy has good practices. You know, somebody made the joke, now that there's 25,000 at games, maybe Matt Landers will be a star. It's only when there's the whole stadium full. The guy looked good to me in the Sugar Bowl, and he looked good in some of the highlight clips. Georgia needs a Matt Landers more than ever, or a Tommy Bush. They need one of these guys to stand up and be something, right? They're not going to look like LSU's receiving core. They're not going to look like Alabama's receiving core. But can they be good enough to win a championship with that defense? Need to find out who those guys are. The guy that I would really want to dial in on, though, is Trey McKinney. Listen, he's 6'5", he's 245, and everything I'm hearing about Trey McKinney is that he is a flyer. This guy can run, he can catch. Remember, Florida State hasn't had a really great quarterback situation. Could Trey McKinney be the equivalent of Kyle Pitts at Florida, and we just don't know it because he hasn't had the quarterback? Remember, Lawrence Cager came in last year, and what did he have, like 17 or 21 catches at Miami? And people said, oh, it's not that big a deal. Lawrence Cager didn't have a quarterback. He came to Georgia. He became the go-to receiver, and he had over 30 catches, even though he only played like 8 games. And Jake Fromm was completing 78% of his passes with Lawrence on the field, 53% without him. And Lawrence, by the way, doing well with the New York Giants right now, even though he went undrafted. Can Trey McKinney be this year's Lawrence Cager in terms of being that impact guy, that grad transfer, maybe didn't have the career that he wanted at Florida State, but now he gets plugged in with a championship supporting cast? Maybe Trey McKinney becomes that matchup nightmare, that guy that too big for a corner to cover, too big for a safety, too fast for a linebacker. Could Trey McKinney be a 40 or 50 catch guy? I don't rule it out. And with Dominic Blaylock's injury, you've got to find that number 2 now. We talked about Demetrius Robertson. He was a 5-star flyer coming out of Savannah Christian, world-class speed, goes to the Pac-12 where they don't play a lot of press, did incredible against zone, but now that he's pressed, the little guy, he's getting stronger. He's got to learn to beat press coverage, and then he's got to be able to catch the ball as well. So this is a big year for Demetrius Robertson. He's got a big year, contract year. He's either going to go pro or he's not going to make it, or he's going to go to the CFL. I don't know where Demetrius Robertson's going. D-Rob, it's all up to you. What do you do with your last opportunity? Big year for Demetrius Robertson. But Darnell Washington, how about the freshman tight end? I know he had a minor scope before the season. Is he all the way back yet? Because this guy is supposed to be like the best pass-catching tight end like ever. Now, I haven't seen the viral video of him yet, but I've seen him. Someone told me he's got a young child. That changes your mindset, I can tell you. And those of you watching probably know that. Remember when you had your first kid? Life changed, right? It was a whole different ball game. You're not just thinking for you anymore. So I think Darnell Washington is a guy that comes in here ready to take care of business. And he's got the size and athleticism. We'll see if he's got the maturity. We'll see if he's got the toughness. But he's got the size and athleticism to be a difference maker. And if you're Georgia, you're not married to, 1 back, 3 receiver, 1 tight end, or 1 back, 2 receiver, 2 tight, or 2. You're saying, hey, Monken, just put the best guys on the field. Put your best playmakers on the field. Who are they going to be? Could it be James Cook in the slot? And is it Zamir White as your single back? Is it Kenny McIntosh? Todd Monken said last week he likes all the different things that Kenny McIntosh can do. Zamir White says, I got to work on my pass catching. In this offense, you're running back, and that's my next thing that I want to see. I want to watch the running backs closely, not just because it's not just about who's running the ball. When Georgia had a pro-style offense, when they had 2 first-round offensive tackles and DeAndre Swift, or when they had Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, Kirby Smart would have been an absolute lunatic if he didn't run the ball. You feed your horse, right? If you've got a great running back and a great offensive line, you need to be a power football team. If you have dynamic receivers and a not so great running back, well, then you're going to throw the ball more. So it kind of irks me when people go, well, why don't they just throw the ball? Because it's not about just throwing the ball. It's about getting the ball to your playmakers. And something that Todd Monken explained last week, and I think it was lost on a lot of these critics that don't really understand football, the number 1 key to setting up an explosive play is putting the defense in run-pass conflict. Okay? What does run-pass conflict means? It means that the defense, you're down in distance, doesn't give away the likelihood of your play. 1st and 10, could be a run, could be a pass, right? 2nd and 10, probably a pass, right? 3rd and 10, most definitely a pass. But 2nd and 5, run or pass. 2nd and 4, 2nd and 6, not really sure what. 3rd and 3, what are we going to get? That's what they mean by staying ahead of the chains. And Georgia did a good job of it. Last year, not as much. They weren't as effective running the ball. They didn't have a lot of continuity on the offensive line. And they didn't have the threats on the perimeter to back those safeties up. So everybody was jamming the box saying, look, you don't got the guys on the perimeter to beat us. And when they do beat us, some of them don't know the plays because you got different guys out there every week because you had 6 guys either injured or suspended, and 5 of your top 6 receivers are gone anyway. So it was what it was. It was a circus. It wasn't, and I'm not going to keep making the argument about Jake Fromm not regressing. The passing game regressed, but it wasn't that the quarterback regressed. It was that the continuity of the passing game just went to hell because they lost guys and guys in and out. So where's the continuity in this offense? How effective is this pass game going to be? Do they have the guys that can spread the field? A name to remember, Arian Smith, flyer. He may be the fastest guy on the team, this freshman. Now, you remember he had a torn meniscus, had surgery a few weeks ago. Typically a 4 to 6 week window. When do you get Arian Smith back? This freshman, they told me that the quarterbacks couldn't lead him. He was that fast. He was outrunning the throws. I'm not exaggerating this, folks. This Arian Smith kid is the real thing when it comes to speed. Sometimes that speed that track guys have doesn't carry over to the football field. Apparently with this guy, it really does. So that's going to be interesting. But getting back to those backs, not just who can run the routes out of the backfield, not just who can catch the ball, but protection is very important. You got to have a guy that knows the protections. We had Jacob Hester on the Beat Show Monday night, and Jacob was explaining when he played for Monken at LSU how important that is when you're in that shotgun and you're that single back. You're all the quarterback has. You got to pick up that blindside guy. You've got to be able to make the read, be able to pick up whoever comes through the line. You've got to know when to stand and block, and you've got to know when to release. So at running back, you're reading the defense too. And here we go once again now. What running back can play the game at full speed 11 on 11? Because that's when you get into the cat and mouse with the shifting fronts and the zone blitzes. And the running back has to make the read and find out, is somebody coming? If X number of guys are, maybe he's keying on one guy, or maybe he's keying on how many guys are coming. And if X number of guys come, then I release. But if this guy comes, I stand and block. I mean, these are the intangibles. These are the little things that make an offense congruent or incongruent. That makes them play together or not play together. And so far, all you've had is Zoom calls and a couple of weeks of walkthrough practices. But now with the pads on in the stadium, 11 on 11, full speed, tackle football, now you find out, okay, where are we really? So that's what tomorrow's going to be about for Georgia. It's going to be where are we? If I were going to do my Kirby Smart predictions on what Kirby would say, he'd say, well, we got a long way to go. The season doesn't start for a long time. Did some things good, sloppy at times. Saw some good things out of the guys. Thought all the quarterbacks did some good things. Definitely got to tighten some things up. Got an ankle here and there. This person's got an ankle injury. This person might have tweaked a hip. I'm probably forgetting somebody. He's going to be as vague as he can. He's going to tell you that it wasn't congruent. It was sloppy. There's a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of time left, and he's going to be happy with the effort. There's no way this Georgia team is not going to give him the effort that he wants. He loves this team. Kirby loves this team. He's been around this team. He's more bought into this team than any other team that he's had at preseason, at this point of the preseason, because he's been around them, because they weren't allowed to recruit. So he knows these guys better than any group. And players that get to know Kirby get tight with him. You look at that relationship he's got with LeCount and his DBs. Those guys love Kirby Smart. And now all those players have had a dose of Kirby Smart. So there's going to be some great continuity on this team. There's already some great chemistry on this team. I don't know if you guys saw it. I put a story up an hour and a half ago. Darren Branch returned to the team. Look, Darren Branch is not a guy that's going to help Georgia this year. This kid, 6'2", 176 from Amite, Louisiana. I guess it's some small town. He went home. I heard he was homesick. maybe things aren't exact. He goes from big fish, small pond to being away from home, and things are happening fast. And we report earlier this week that he's not with the team. The parents sit down with him and convince him to come back, and Georgia welcomes him back. Part of me goes, well, do they want him back? I mean, you got this 85 scholarship issue here. Kirby's trying to get under this number. Do you want him back? But you know what? What if you don't take him back? What if you just leave that kid down there? You say, no, you can't come back. Then what happens to him without football? I thought that was the responsible thing. I talked to a couple of other player parents, and they said, no, Mike, this team wants it. We got Richard LeCount and Eric Stokes as leaders. We want to bring him back. We want Darren to have a chance at Georgia. He's a freshman. And, it's not like he's a junior or a senior. This is all new to him. This is a COVID-19 year. And this is hard on everybody. We talked about that. I talked about my dumb toothache. You saw my doggone bulldog break. It's a tough year for all of us. So the kid went home. Georgia's bringing him back. And that's good news for Georgia. I think, it just shows you what kind of a family environment that Kirby Smart's trying to build here at Georgia. I went back and I watched the Fox production. Urban Meyer had picked Florida to win the SEC, and he picked Alabama second and Georgia third. And I just kind of thought, you Urban Meyer. I'll tell you a funny Urban Meyer story. So I was covering a recruiting camp, maybe 2013, 2014. And Urban Meyer was a guest speaker. And he gets up and he's talking, and he's Urban Meyer, and there's 150 or 200 kids kind of all sitting down around him. And all of a sudden he goes, hey, you! Hey! And he points out there. He goes, when I'm talking, I need your eyes up. You watch me. And I'm going, wow, Urban Meyer is really making sure that nobody is going to sleep on him when he delivers his talk, right? 1 year later, Urban Meyer, guest speaker again, gets up there, starts talking, same point in the speech. Hey, you! When I'm talking, I go, wait a minute. He's not really pointing at anybody. He's just trying to scare these kids into thinking that if they don't look at him, he's going to catch them. I thought, that's actually a pretty good coaching tactic when you think about it, because everybody all of a sudden goes, whoa, wasn't me, coach, So, but that's like an Urban Meyer coaching trick, right? Urban Meyer Jedi mind trick. But his explanation for picking Florida number one was because Florida had the returning quarterback, and Alabama didn't, and LSU didn't, and Georgia didn't. Okay. All things being equal, if you don't know the defensive situation at Georgia, if you weren't watching that game, okay, I'll buy that, because there is a lot to be said for continuity, and there's a lot to be said for how that quarterback operates. I think Kyle Trask is a good quarterback. I know Georgia fans like to make fun of Florida and all that, but he did a pretty good job. I think he completed 67% of his passes. I think Dan Mullen is a pretty good coach. I don't think he's all that. I don't give him all that credit, but I think he's a pretty good coach. I think he's better than most. Remains to be seen. I don't see them bypassing Georgia this year or really next year, to be honest with you. So, but is he good enough to finish second in the SEC East the next 2 years? Yeah. But by Urban Meyer's logic, okay. There was something else that came out of that. And again, I know we're talking about Todd Monken and the new offense, and you want a lot of points and you want a lot of yards, and that's cool. I totally get that. But what you've got to consider is you're playing 10 SEC games this year. You're not playing, you don't have an Arkansas State in there or a Murray State in there where you can, run up some crazy numbers. Every game is going to be a tough game. And with Georgia having that front-loaded schedule, do you really want to run 80 or 90 snaps and play up-tempo in your first three games? I mean, I'm going to do some math with you here. So let's say, what is Florida? Florida is the 7th game of the season, 8th game of the season, 8th game of the season. All right, let me make sure about that. I'm going to call this up because I'm going to play a mathematics game with you here. Because I saw this happen on a team that I covered before, and I didn't really think about it until after the season when the defensive coach was like, Do you realize, yada, 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 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Florida's game 6. Okay, let's say 5 games. Okay, first 5 games of the season, let's say you play up tempo. You play up tempo the first 5 games of the season, and you got your kids out there for 90 snaps. In 5 games, that's 450. That's 450 snaps. Versus in 5 games, you play 70 snaps, which is like your pro style tempo. That's 350 snaps. Okay? That's almost as if you've played an entire extra game at the halfway point of the season, if you're going 90 snaps versus 70 snaps. That's an entire extra game of injuries, of wear and tear, of physicality on your player. So when you wonder why Kirby just doesn't go high tempo in the fourth quarter when he's up by 3 touchdowns, it's because he's managing his team's health. Remember last week we talked about how strong Georgia was in the month of November? And we talked about their depth? Well, that was 2 things. One, they play a lot of different guys, and they were playing those bad teams, and they could play those young guys. But 2, Kirby was running clock in the fourth quarter. I know the fans don't like it, and it's boring, but that's less snaps, and less snaps means fewer opportunities to get injured. I mean, like I said, do the math yourself. 90 snaps a game versus 70 snaps a game. Going into that Florida game, it's like you're playing 1 extra game if you stay up tempo. So while I think you're going to see some tempo, and while I definitely think you're going to see a better offense and the ball spread out more, I wouldn't be surprised if you still see some running in the fourth quarter, if you still see some elements of the power game where Kirby tries to take time off the clock, because he's managing his roster health. And that's going to be really important for Georgia, especially on the front end of the season when you go, in order: Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida. I mean, that's a tough 5-game stretch. So in some of those games where he can let the air out, I think he absolutely will. And I think that absolutely makes sense. So wanted to share that thought with you. Saw Nick Chubb was back in practice. Great news from Michael Barnett, fan favorite defensive lineman, signed on with the New England Patriots. Congratulations to Michael Barnett and his agent, Chad Berger. Listen, this is tough. These free agents, they didn't get to have a pro day. They didn't get to do the normal workouts, and it's going to be hard for those guys to make it, but I'm hoping Michael Barnett can make the Patriots as a preferred or as one of those free agents, 16 free agents. So I'll take a look at your comments and see what you guys have got for me. I've done a lot of talking tonight. This has been a tough show. My tooth is starting to hurt again, and my bulldog is broke, and I am very disappointed by that. I mean, I don't know if it was, I don't know. I thought I'd put him in a safe place. I take responsibility. I guess I didn't put him in a very safe place. I'm not much of a parent. I feel bad about it. Sorry about that, Mason, the bulldog. This is tough. Mike Mizell, can't wait for Zeus to flat out run people over. Heard he looks better than ever now. Mike, I just wonder what Zamir's role is going to be. I don't know if he's the best pass-catching back out of the backfield. I know he's a powerful runner. I almost feel like Zamir was better fit for the past 2 years' offensive lines, that power game. If this is going to help Zamir out, because this is kind of what the NFL looks like now when you look at these running backs. Most of these running backs are multi-dimensional guys that can catch the ball out of the backfield. These are skills that Zamir needed to work on. May not be what he signed up for, but this is where the program's at. And listen, he's a hard-working guy. I think we're all rooting for Zamir White, a guy that overcame a right knee injury, a left knee injury. He's a hard-working kid. He's a very polite kid. I've been told he's a very good leader. He's extremely respected by his teammates and coaches. So everybody is wishing for the best for Zamir White. But it's a competitive backfield. Kenny McIntosh is the real deal. I'm telling you, the guy's real. And I've been telling you that for a long time. I'm hearing good things about Kendall Milton. I still want, this is going to be a big game for Kendall Milton tomorrow. The scrimmage tomorrow is a big scrimmage for Kendall Milton. This kid from Fresno, California is going to get his first taste of the real 11-on-11 SEC juice. He's going to find out what he's made of. So big day for Kendall. Same thing with Dejon Edwards. Big day for these freshmen. big day for these freshmen to strap it on and go in that stadium and show Coach Smart what they can do. So yeah, Zamir White is a guy. I would just say, temper your expectations. Understand it's a new offense. Understand that he has different skill sets to improve. He did that video. He told you that. He doesn't want to be a failure. Zamir doesn't want to let you down. Dog Nation, you have supported him. He did all those videos so that you all would support him and help bring him along. And if he's not the man, and if he's not the 1,000-yard rusher, you all need to support him, because Zamir will continue to work toward that. I promise you, he's one of the hardest working guys on the team. James, you say 1,000 yards? I don't think so. It's only a 10-game season. Remember that. It's not a 12 or a 13-game season. It's a 10-game season. Going to be very hard for anybody to get 1,000 yards, especially the way Georgia likes to spread the carries and the workout in the backfield. Again, roster management. Kirby Smart understands roster management. So when they're not running 90 snaps and scoring 50 points on Arkansas, don't panic, because Kirby understands that he's got to get young players time in that Arkansas game. He understands he doesn't want to show everything that he has against Arkansas. He wants to show as little as possible, because next man up on the schedule is one of the best defensive minds in college football in Kevin Steele. And Kevin is going to scheme you. Kevin schemed up LSU last year better than anybody. And after you play Kevin, Jeremy's waiting. And Jeremy is going to watch what Kevin does. And Jeremy and Kevin are going to scheme you. And then Nick's going to. So if you're Georgia, you got to be careful. You got to figure out, how do we want to manage this? Yeah, you're going to, I know you don't hold back too much, but yes, they do hold back plays. They call them, and I've seen the plays chart. So I'll tell you all this. I don't mind telling you this. So last year's Florida game, the game's over, and I'm doing like one of these stand-ups, one of these Facebook Lives after the Florida game. So I say, hey, can I go down there in one of those booths? Because, there's so many media running around talking, and you don't want everybody milling around, So I go into a coach, and there's a play card. There's a play sheet. One of the Georgia coaches left the play sheet in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Georgia play sheet. It's laminated, right? It's got the offensive plays on both sides. And I text Kirby and I go, somebody left the play sheet. What do you want me to do with it? He's like, just bring it in and drop it off to Claude. So I did. I brought it in and dropped it off to Claude Felton. Look, I'm not out there to sell it on eBay or put it out on the internet, or that wouldn't be cool. That'd be kind of sneaky and low, and that's not how you do it as a reporter. I mean, maybe you get your 15 minutes of fame, but that ain't me, man. But I looked at it, and I looked at how they laid it out, and it wasn't anything that Kirby hadn't told us as far as how they laid out plays and how they had like their winner plays. They had like plays that were called like answer plays. And these plays were set up for certain situations where they knew this play would be there against this formation. So like that pass to Eli Wolf on that 3rd and 7 was one of the answer plays. So it was kind of interesting, to see how they scheme it. They had different plays for different down and distance situations, color-coded. It was fascinating. And before anybody worries about it, that offense is out the window. So even if I did have the play card still, it wouldn't be worth much. And James Coley critics will tell you that. Brand new offense, brand new terminology this year. But you can bet that there's going to be a lot of similarities in how they do it. It was very complex. It was pretty fascinating. What else we got here, guys? What else you got for me? James Crump, yards count in the playoffs also. They do, James. Listen, what you got to understand is that Todd Monken, when he talked about balance, he talked about, to him, and on our cover 4, we kind of got into an argument about it, but I was laughing because, Kirby Smart said in 2018 that no matter what offense he was in charge of, it was going to be balanced. And he started talking about running the ball. And it was pretty clear. And he said that they would always be able to run the ball and dictate. That was the two things. He said they're always going to be balanced and we're going to be able to dictate. I mean, I got that quote etched in my brain, right? So last year, balance turned into, well, you got to be able to run the ball and pass the ball effectively. That's balance. I thought balance was more like 50-50, but okay, that's what we're going to say. This year, Monken says balance is being able to use the entire field and get the ball out to people with balance. I said, okay, I like how each one of these offensive coordinators like take liberty with Kirby's words, right? It's like if someone paints a picture and you go, I want it blue. Well, this is green, which is actually blue and yellow. No, I said blue. Well, you have to look a little deeper, and I kind of feel like there's some creative, liberties here that are allowed. Bottom line, Kirby Smart wants to win games, guys, okay? But he believes he knows. He doesn't just believe, he knows. And anybody watching, I saw Monty Rice watching, the star linebacker we talked about earlier. Monty knows. If that team can gouge you for 3 to 5 to 6 yards on first down running the ball, it's going to be a long day because of that run-pass conflict we talked about. Teams love to be in 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10. They pin their ears back. They can play. They can look for keys, things like that. But when it's 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, are you leaning forward? Are you leaning back? They could do anything here. If you can run the ball effectively, that puts the defense in run-pass conflict, and that helps create explosive plays. The other thing that Monken talked about was getting in space to create open plays. Here's the problem with that. The defense knows that you want to get James Cook in open space. So you go, well, just get it to James Cook in open space. They've got a guy going with them on every play, okay? They're going to account for him, right? You got Pickens. Throw it, somebody said, you got to throw it. They got to have so many throws to Pickens. If they're double covering Pickens and nobody can cover Trey McKinney one-on-one, then Trey McKinney's going to have a big day. You're not going to throw into double coverage when McKinney is beating one-on-one coverage, or Demetrius Robertson, or maybe because McKinney is good enough that now a safety has to watch him, and maybe now the back underneath will be open. Do you see? It's a very fluid thing. What are they giving you versus what do you want to take? Are you good enough to dictate? Are you good enough? Is Pickens good enough to beat double coverage? Is he good enough to? I don't know that. We're going to find that out tomorrow, because he's going to go up against the best. And that's what's exciting about it. I used to laugh at Tennessee's closed scrimmages at Neyland Stadium. I would do like a box score of the closed scrimmage and put an attendance there for the closed scrimmage. And it would sometimes be 1,500 or 3,000 people. You could go to Neyland Stadium and watch scrimmages in the fall. And in Kirby, you can't even watch warm-ups. You want to talk about a coach that's on lockdown that doesn't want to give you the slightest advantage. It's Kirby Smart. He doesn't want to give you a half an inch on that 3rd and 10. So, Monty's challenging me here with Pickens. I know what Pickens can do. I want to see what the defense. You got Eric Stokes. You got Tyson Campbell. You got DJ Daniel. You got Richard LeCount. And I'm hearing all this about Lewisine. So I want to see. And then don't forget, you still got to have a quarterback that can put the ball there. Right? I mean, George is amazing. Like I said, he's the human vacuum sweeper. Everything within 6 inches. But if he's got 2 dogs draped on him, and that quarterback doesn't put it where he's supposed to put it, I'm telling you, Richard LeCount this year is going to have at least 6 interceptions. At least 6 interceptions for Richard LeCount this year, because he knows how to play his assignment, and we saw what he did. The last 6 games of last season, Richard LeCount was a part of 6 turnovers. 2 picks against Baylor. Baylor had, a month to prepare for the Georgia defense, and looked like they forgot how to play offense for a half. They were shut out. And they could have been shut out the second half if Georgia hadn't gotten a little conservative with their defense. Kirby will tell you, we're playing the same. They just, I don't know. It doesn't look the same to me when he gets a 3-touchdown lead. Some people say, he says it is. I say, I think your DBs are a little further back, Kirby. That's just me. I don't know. He's the head coach. I'm not going to debate him. Listen, this show has been so much fun. It's been a highlight for me. I overcame my toothache, but I feel horrible about my bulldog. I'm going to have to get another one. This was a gift. And I guess I can kind of understand now how Georgia fans feel about the Uga legacy. This was Mason 1. This was the first one. And now there's going to be a Mason 2. He'll carry on the spirit, much like Uga. But it just won't be the same. This is the one that I knew. This is the one that sat on my front porch and started on the show with me on Friday Night Mike. This was my co-star. I could rely on him to bring a few laughs. People wondered if he was real. I'd put him in the steps and they'd see the shadow. And without fail, somebody would say, that dog hasn't moved the whole show. And now he's gone. You know, do you bury it or do you just throw it in the trash? I don't know. It's something, I think I might have to bury it. I mean, just for the spirit of this thing, right? I mean, if I'm really that bought in, I mean, you don't just throw something like this in the trash. I think tomorrow I might need to bury Mason 1. And I think I might. And I'll tell you what else I'm going to do tomorrow. Kirby Smart is going to have a 3:30 Zoom call. And he is going to talk about the scrimmage or not talk about the scrimmage, because that's what Kirby does. He's not going to tell us, oh man, I was so excited. He is not going to say that. He's not, oh guys, I can't wait for you guys to see how good Kenny Mack. He's not going to say that. Okay? He's not, oh man, this defense, these guys are the best. He ain't going to say that. He's going to talk about the defense being sloppy. He's going to say, what was it? Remember after the Kentucky game? What did he say? They were terrible after the Kentucky game or something like that when they won 21-0. It was hilarious. He said it with a straight face. I can't remember the word he used, but he's not going to be happy. But he's going to give us some ideas of what he saw. He's going to give a few guys some shout-outs that deserve it. He's going to stress that the team's got to get better in certain areas. He's going to communicate, and he's going to give us a general idea without giving out too much information. In the morning, I've got a story coming out. Todd McShay did his NFL dogs, and I wrote a comment on each one. So, like, he talks about Jamie Newman being the number 7 quarterback, and I come in there and I say Jamie Newman's got to show he can play in a pro-style offense. There were no Georgia running backs in the top 10. I give a comment about Zamir White and James Cook. He says Monty Rice is the number 6 inside linebacker. I say Monty Rice doesn't have a career interception yet. He's going to have to make some plays this year to be the number 6 inside linebacker and go in the first 2 rounds. You know, things like that sort of insight. So that's coming out first thing in the morning on Dog Nation. You're going to want to see that. The Todd McShay list and my editorial comments. And then Brandon Adams will have a piece as well. And Jerry, thank you for the comments about Mason. He was a great dog. And you know what? It was cool to have, he was the only one like it in the neighborhood. And it was cool to have him out front because he was a Mason Bulldog, but he lived in Georgia. And I'll tell you, the other people that had Georgia Bulldogs on their doorsteps in my neighborhood, about 40% of them, they treated him just like he was one of them. He was not left out. He felt like he was a part of it. He was proud to be a Bulldog on the front step in Georgia. Even though he was a Mason Bulldog, I think he felt like he was a part of the culture here. And you all were a part of that. He was a damn good dog. And that's a good way to end the show tonight. So check us out tomorrow after the scrimmage. And everybody have a safe and wonderful weekend. I got to take care of Mason now.